this is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make these really cute little bracelets with the beads in the newest treasure bags, the Autumn Showcase, Sunrise and Sunset. This is the Sunrise color scheme. This is the Sunset color scheme. I'm going to be making the Sunset on camera today, but I'm going to show you exactly what I'm going to use with the Sunrise also. And this is how they turn out. So you're going to use the exact same size and style of beads in both of them. The only thing that will be different is the color scheming, and they turn out really cute. I'm going to take them off so you can see what they look like laying out, and I think they're just adorable and very nice for everyday wear, very stackable. And you could always use the rondelles that are in the bag that are sparkly too instead of the opaques. I chose the opaques. Maybe you could make two and you could use one with opaque and one with sparkle, something like that. And this is what it looks like. And let's go ahead and look and see what it takes to make this particular bracelet. Okay, for this project today, we are going to be using some of the things from the newest treasure bags, which are the Autumn Showcase, Sunrise, and Sunset. Now, I just created my design with the Sunrise collection, and what I have laid out are the beads, these two here, from the Sunrise. The Sunset I will be doing next, and I'm using the 4x3 rice shaped beads, the metallic looking ones. I used those in Sunrise in the peach puff color, and in your Sunset it's rosaline color. So I will be using these in the tutorial today. And then you have some 6x5 rondelles that you have one that's caramel color for the Sunset. For the Sunrise, it was this pale peach color. And I have made my design with the pale peach color and the peach puff beads so you can see what they look like. And then we're going to add to the bag some seed beads. So I'm using rose gold galvanized permanent finish Toho. I'm using rose gold in 15-0 and 11-0, and I'm using bronze in 8-0. So like I said, these are all Toho seed beads. I'm also adding to the treasure bag this little copper tone clasp because I think it blends better. You can use the clasps that you got. You can use whatever color seed beads with it you would like. You can also use, if you want to make them sparkly instead of opaque, you can make these with the 6x5 rondelles that came in your bag also. In the Sunrise, you had peach puff AB, and then in the Sunset, you have this rosaline AB. You can use those also. They'll work just fine in this design. I just kind of like the opaque against the shiny rice beads. And then I'm going to be using 6-pound Fireline, and I'm using it in the smoke because I'm using darker seed beads and I want it to blend a little better. So I'm using 6-pound Fireline, and I am using it in the smoke color, and I'm using a size 12 beading needle. So regardless of which bag you have, just grab your rice beads and your rondelles, grab some 8-0, 11-0, and 15-0 seed beads, and let's get started. Okay, so I put onto my needle about 4.5 to 5 feet of thread, and then I picked up onto my needle an 8-0, a 4x3 rice bead, an 11-0, a 4x3 rice bead, an 8-0, a 4x3, and an 11-0, and a 4x3, just like this. Now you're going to bring this down to the end of the thread. You don't have to leave a long tail, but you need to leave enough to tie a knot with. So bring it all the way down to the end of your thread, and then we will go back up through just the first 8-0 seed bead on the tail side and pull this through. Now I left a little bit too much tail, so I'm just going to scoot it down until I get it where I want it there. And this is what we have. Now we're just going to sew back through it until our working thread meets the tail thread so that we can tie a knot. So I'm just going to go through I'm coming out the 8/0, I'm going through a rice bead, 11/0 rice bead, and as you pull through, just be careful because your tail can pull through also, so it's best to hold on to it if you can, and then just continue going all the way up the rest of the beads until you get to where your tail and your working thread are right there in between the 8/0 and the rice bead. Then take your working thread, create a loop, put your tail thread through that loop twice, and then draw a knot down between the 8/0 and the rice bead, just like this. Now we're going to sew back through this again. So I'm coming out where my knot is. I'm going to go into the 8/0, and I'm just going to go into the 8/0 by itself because I just want to kind of separate it from that rice bead a little bit. And then I'm going to go into the rice bead and the 11/0 here. Let me get you a little closer. And then I am going to continue. I have a lot of thread on here, and I'm going to go up into the rice bead and the 8/0 here. And then I'm going to go into the rice bead and 11/0, pull through, and then come through the rice bead and the 8/0 on the top here where my tail is. Then I'm going to put on one side of my clasping. So I'm going to pick up 2 11/0 seed beads and an 8/0, just like this. And I'm going to drop this down to my little piece here. Then I'm going to pick up one end of my clasp and go through the loop of it. Then I'm going to go back down into just the 8/0 seed bead, just like this. I'm going to hold on to that 8/0, and I am going to pull my thread through, drawing down the clasping. Then I am going to pick up 2 11/0 seed beads onto my needle, and I'm going to go into the opposite side of the 8/0 we're attaching to. So just like this, and pull this down. And you should have something that looks like this. Then we're just going to sew back through. So we're going to go up through the 2 11/0s, the 8/0, and the back of the loop of the clasp. Pull this down, then come around to the front, go through the 8/0, 2 11/0s on the other side, just like this. And then go through the 8/0. Do that 2 more times and we'll be back. Okay, so now I have secured my clasping, and I am going to just cut this tail down a little bit just to get it out of my way with my dull scissors here. And now I'm coming out of this 8/0 seed bead here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew into the rice bead and then into the 11/0 on this side. Then I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead and a rondelle and an 11/0. So I'm exiting the 11/0 here. I've got, we want 15/0 rondelle, 15/0 is what we want on our needle, just like this. We're coming out of this side of this 11/0. We're going to go straight across and into the same side of the opposite 11/0 in the unit here. And we're going to draw this down, push it over the top, and then you're going to hold on to it and give it a tug so it's nice and tight on there. And then we're going to pick a 15/0 up, go into the rondelle, just like this. Whoops, let me get in camera here. So we're coming out of the rondelle, we're going to pick up a 15/0 and go straight down into the rondelle again and tighten it. Now I'll do several units, so if I was out of camera, just hang on and you'll see exactly what you missed. And then we're coming out of the rondelle now. We're going to go into the 11-0 and the rice bead on this side. So we're going into the opposite side we started in. And my thread got caught. There we go. And we're just going to pull this very tightly. Now, we're going to go into this 8-0 seed bead right here. And pull my thread through, give it a little tug. Now, if you don't have good tension on this, and we're going to sew through what might seem kind of excessively to tighten this, but if you do not have good tension on this, your little 15-0 seed beads will not stay in place and it won't look as pretty. So we want to make sure that we secure every stitch and we pull nice tension. We're coming out of this 8-0 seed bead. We're going to pick up 3 more 8-0s and we're going to go into the opposite side of the 8-0 we're coming out of and pull these down into a little right angle weave unit. Now we're going to sew all the way back around this unit to secure it, because we are going to put an embellishment on it and you cannot embellish it when it's that loose. So I'm going through each bead one at a time so that I retain the shape that I want. And I do hold my thumb and finger together just so that I can guide the thread through and then give a nice tug, because I want this to be very, very secure, just like this. Now, if your beads are kind of funny, just straighten them up so that they look just like this. Then pick up a 15-0 an 11-0 and a 15-0 seed bead onto your needle. You're coming out of this bead right here. You're coming out of this side. We're going to cross over into the opposite bead on the opposite side. So you're going in a diagonal straight across the unit, and then you pull these beads down and they'll lay in a diagonal, just like this. Now you're coming out of this bead here. You pick up a 15-0 seed bead and go just into the center 11-0 bead right here. I'm going to get a little closer just to make sure you can see these little seed beads. Now I'm going to put my thumb and finger over it and guide that 15-0 down and pull tight so that it lays really nicely in that spot right there. Then I'm going to pick up a 15-0 seed bead and I'm going to go into the opposite side of the 8-0 I started in. And I'm going to pull this 15-0 down. I'm going to put my thumb and finger over it and give a really nice tug, because I want these to lay kind of like a little flower on top. So I want to make sure they're arranged nicely and nice and tight. Then I'm coming out of the 8-0 here in the original unit. I'm going to go down into the side 8-0 here now and give a tug. Then I'm going to go into the bottom 8-0, or the 8-0 that's sticking out here. Now everything's nice and neat and I can begin my next unit. And the way I do that is I'll pick up a rice bead, then I will pick up an 11-0, and then I will pick up a rice bead, an 8-0, and I will show you what I have: a rice bead, an 11-0, and a rice bead. So we're sharing this 8-0, so we only need one this time. So you've got rice bead 11-0, rice bead 8-0, rice bead 11-0, rice bead. And then you're going to go into the opposite side of the 8-0 you're coming out of and pull this down. Now we're going to secure this because, like I said, if you don't secure these units, then your 15-0s aren't going to lay nice on your embellishment. So I'm just going to start by going through the rice bead and the 11-0, and then I'm going to go through the rice bead and the 8-0, and then through rice bead 11-0 on this side here. Hold on to it, pull it tight, and rice bead and 8-0, the one I'm attaching to on this side. Now we're going to sew all the way around and we'll attach our embellishment from here just to give us one more passive thread that will give us some more structure here. So we're going through this rice bead, the 11-0, this rice bead and 8-0, this rice bead and 11-0. Pull it tight, make sure it has real nice tension, and then pick up a 15-0, one of your rondelles, and a 15-0. We're going straight across. We're coming out of this side of this 11-0. We're going to go straight across and go into the same side of the 11-0 on the opposite bead, just like this. And pull it together. You can see how I hold on to it and I tug a little bit. I want those 15-0s to pop in there tight. If you don't do that, it's going to be very messy. Then we're going to pick up the 15-0 for this side and go back into the rondelle so we can attach the other side of the rondelle. So we pick up the 15-0, go through the rondelle and pull. Now I'm not pulling so hard I break my thread, but I am giving it a nice tug. Now I'm coming out of this rondelle. I'm going to go into this 8-0 and rice bead behind it, just like this, and I'm going to pull this 15-0 down. And I'm going to position it correctly because it wants to lay funny, so I'm going to make sure that it lays where I want it to lay. Okay, you, come here. Oh, you know, I've done an entire bracelet and it was just fine. But now I see what I did. So what I did was I came through the original 15-0, the first one I put on. So I'm going to back this up, pull out of this rice bead, and then I'm going to pull on this 15-0, back my needle through here, and I'm going to have to rethread my needle. Sorry about that, guys, but I leave little things like this in too, so you can see if you do the same thing I do, how I dealt with it. So now, when I came through my rondelle, I came through the 15-0 on top of it. That is the problem. So I'm going to pull this 15-0 off my thread. I'm going to back out of the 15-0 and just leave my thread inside the rondelle. Now, I'm going to pick up my 15-0 seed bead. I'm going to go into the opposite side of the 11-0 I'm anchoring to, right here. Sorry about that mistake. I could cut it out, but I think I'm going to leave it because I've had some comments that people like to see how to correct issues. So now we're coming out of this 11-0 seed bead, we're coming out this way. So we're going to sew back through the unit and come out the 8-0 on the other side. Now I know that seems like a bunch of sewing through, but it really helps give these units structure, and they really need it, because if you don't have the proper structure for these units, they kind of pull apart. So now I've gone through that bead, I've gone through the 8-0 that I attached this unit to. I'm going to continue sewing through the rice beads, this rice bead, this 11-0, this rice bead, and then I'm going to go to this 8-0 on the end here. Now I am going to pick up 3 8-0 seed beads. That 8-0 is weird. Let me get a different one. So 3 8-0 seed beads I'm attaching to this one, so it will be my 4th, and I'm just going to go into the opposite side of the bead I'm coming out of, just like this. And now we need to sew around this entire unit. So I like to sew one bead at a time so that I get a nice shape as I sew through. And each unit or each bead that I sew through, I hold on to and tug just to make sure I get really nice tension established. And then come through the bead we're attaching to. Make sure that everything is nice and neat and tight. Pick up a 15-0, an 11-0, and a 15-0. We're going to cross over and go into the opposite side of the opposite bead here. So we're going in a diagonal, we're coming out of this side, we're going to go into this side of the bottom bead here. pull this across. Make sure you have no slack, pick up a 15-0 seed bead, and then just go through the 11-0 in the center here. I'm going to hold on to it so that I don't pull all the tension I've already established out, and guide that down, straighten out my beads, pick up a 15-0, and then I'm going to go into the opposite side of the bead I'm attaching to. So the one that I started in, I'm going in the opposite side with the 15-0 seed bead, and I'm going to make sure that 15-0 goes where I want it to. If I have to move it around, I will. Then I'm going to tighten everything, make sure it looks good, so it lays kind of like a little flower on top. And then I am going to go through the side 8-0, through the most lowest 8-0 here. Let me back off. I keep moving out of camera here. And now I'm coming out of this 8-0 seed bead where I'm going to start a new unit. Let's see if we can do this unit without messing anything up. So I'm going to pick up a rice bead and then an 11-0, then a rice bead and an 8-0, a rice bead and an 11-0, and a rice bead. Just like this. And I'm going to go into the opposite side of the 8-0 I'm coming out of. I'm going to draw these down to my unit, and then I'm going to sew back all the way around all these beads. So I've gone through 3 of them on this side. Then I'm going to go through the 8-0 here, and then I'm going to go through the beads on this side. And you can go through all 3 of them at this point. After you've done this part, then you just kind of push them into the shape you want, because we want them kind of diamond shaped, and then you'll sew just through 2 at a time basically. So now we're all the way around. We're going to go into the rice bead and the 11-0 on this side, and pull our thread through, tighten everything very tightly. It'll pull your unit kind of into this little diamond shape here. Then you're going to pick up a 15-0. Oh, that 15-0 is not coming. 15-0 rondelle, 15-0, and we're crossing straight over. So we're coming out right here. We're going to cross over and go into the opposite bead on the same side we're coming out of this bead, and we're going to pull this down. Pull it on top of the unit, and then once you get it on there, just kind of hold it in place and pull your thread so it's nice and tight, and it'll pull those beads into shape there. Then we're going to pick up a 15-0 seed bead. Well, that 15-0, get out of here. Okay, I keep trying to pick up the same one that won't pick up. We're going to go back through the rondelle. Then we're going to pull this down. Pick up a 15-0 and go into the opposite side of the 11-0 that you've started your attachment to. Pull this 15-0 up and arrange it next to the previous one, just like that. Then we're going to go into the 8-0 seed bead here. And we'll do one more complete unit since I messed up the first couple. So we're going to pick up 3 8-0 seed beads. We're going to go into the opposite side of the 8-0 we're coming out of. Then we're going to sew back through 1 8-0 at a time. Tighten it and go into the next one. Let me rearrange here. There we go. So we're going to go into this one here, and then into this one, and back into the bead we're attaching to. Arrange them so they're nice and neat. Pick up a 15-0 seed bead and Then pick up an 11-0 seed bead and a 15-0 seed bead, and we're going to go across in a diagonal, so into the opposite bead on the opposite side from which we're coming out of this bead, just like this. And we're going to pull this through, just like that. Then we are going to pick up a 15-0 seed bead and go just into the 11-0 in the center. Pull that down, tighten it, pick up a 15-0 and go back into the opposite side of the bead we started in. Pull this down, tighten it, arrange it, make sure it looks like a little flower, and then sew into the side 8-0 seed bead. Then sew into the bottom 8-0 seed bead. Then we're going to pick up a rice bead, an 11-0, a rice bead, and an 8-0, a rice bead, an 11-0, and a rice bead. Just like this, and go into the opposite side of the bead we're coming out of. We'll complete this one and then we'll go to length off camera. So now we're going to sew all the way around this entire unit. So I'm going to go through all the beads on this side, and then into my 8-0, and then all the beads on this side, just like this, and then into the 8-0, and now I'm going to sew all the way around to this bead and start my unit. Now you could start it right here, and I think I did last time, but I just feel like if you started up here, you have more of a chance of your 15-0s staying in place because there's more structure to it. So I'm going to sew all the way around, come out this one. It truly doesn't matter if you do start from here or here, but I'm just kind of thinking that the more thread through there, the better it works. So I'm picking up a 15-0, a rondelle, and a 15-0. And I'm going to go into the same side of the opposite bead here that I'm coming out of, and I'm just going to pull this together like this. Then I'm going to pick up another 15-0. I'm going to come up through this rondelle, pull this 15-0 down, make sure it lays right next to the other 15-0. Get you really close for a minute so you can see. And then we're going to pick up another 15-0. And we have to go in this way, so we're going to sew all the way back around. So we're going into that 11-0 and the rice bead, pull this down, make sure it's arranged nicely, go into the 8-0. So if you sew around this way, you'll have a lot more structure to your unit. Just depends on how patient you are. If you don't want to be bothered with that, then, you know, just start in the 11-0 after you secure the first time. Arrange everything because I want it to look good. I'm really picky about that. There we go. And then I'm going to go into this 8-0 right here. Then I will make my right angle weave unit again, embellish it, and then move into my next rice bead unit. And I will continue doing that in 10 units. Now, of course, I'm counting each one individually. I'm not counting the little extension of right angle weave in between. And once you have 10 of your bigger units, then you will have, with your clasping, put on a 7-inch bracelet. Now, of course, that's going to depend on the size and type of your clasping, and it's also going to depend on how long you want your bracelet to be. So if you want it shorter or longer, you'll just add or subtract units. If you need just a little bit more length, on the end here, I'm ending on the end of the rice unit here. You can put another right angle weave unit and then put your clasping from that too, to give yourself just a little bit more room. Now both of these bracelets are exactly the same in pattern. The only difference in the color of beads on the seed beads is on this lighter bracelet from the Sunrise, I used bronze 11-0 between the rice beads, and on this one I used a rose gold, and I used the rose gold 15-0s. Here, bronze and rose gold 15-0s. So that is the difference in the seed beads. Other than that, they're exactly the same. And now I'm going to put my clasping on the end here. So I've gone ahead and made this unit, and then I sewed around the entire unit twice just to make sure that it's nice and secure. And then I'm going to pick up two 11-0 seed beads and an 8-0, and I'm going to drop down the other end of the clasp, just like this. Let's get a little closer. Then I'm going to go around the clasping into the 8-0 and hold on to that 8-0 and pull everything together, just like this, and then pick up two 11-0s and go into the other side. Now, we're going to go ahead and sew back through this entire thing twice, come back and knot it off, and this bracelet will be done. So go ahead and secure your clasping a couple more times. Okay, so now I've secured my clasping. I'm coming out of this 8-0 seed bead after sewing through a couple of times, and now I'm going to turn my piece over, go from the 8-0 to the rice bead here, and then into the next 11-0 and rice bead. And right between the rice bead and the 8-0 that connects the two units, I'm going to tie a knot. So I'm just going to go underneath this thread bridge that's between the 8-0 and the rice bead, pull my needle through, adjust my thread so it is between those two beads, and pull a knot down on the thread bridge. Then I'm just going to sew through this right angle weave unit. So I'm going to go into this 8-0 here. And you will need to extend your thread during this process, so I will put a link to a video that shows you how to do that if you do not know how. Now I'm just sewing through the 8-0s until I get to the next connection where I have the 8-0 and rice bead next to each other, and I'm going to make another knot right there on that thread bridge between the two beads. And then I'm just going to sew all the way back through this unit here to get to the next right angle weave unit, and I will cut my thread off. So I'm going to go through this rice bead, whoops, and my needle fell off, so I'm going to cut my thread down a little bit and just burn in a nice tail, so I have a nice little tag here that you can see. And I'm just going to get my flame close and blob that in so that it creates another little knot and holds my bracelet together. So now I have a bracelet, and I'm going to put one on so you can see what it looks like. And like I said, if you want to do this, you have quite a few rice beads. I'll have to count, but there's quite a few left. You could do one with the sparkle rondelles and one with the opaque rondelles and wear them together. That would be really pretty. So here is what it looks like on the wrist, and I'll put the Sunrise on too. They look really good together. So I could stack them if I can get this one on, because you know, I try to do it fast. I'm on camera and I can't do it. Yeah, it's the way things work. Okay, so that's what that looks like. And I think they're really, really cute. And this would be a very simple, everyday type of bracelet. And if you do not have these rice beads, you can find something small, a little column, something small. You might even be able to use a rice pearl and just make it a little bigger. So you just have to adjust the way that you put your bead on. You might have to use a couple more 15-0s instead of just one on either side, but you can take this particular pattern and modify it because it's just a very simple, basic type of stitch. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.